People who are extremely productive, how do they do that? I mean, think about someone you admire because they seem to be top performers, they seem to achieve what they want, and sometimes even without too much effort, which is at the base of productivity, right? Achieve great results with limited amount of time and effort. That's the goal. So do they have something in common? Well, I think so. And I think even more so since I started reading, actually a long time ago, Tribe of Mentors, a great book by Tim Ferriss where he interviews some, I would say, top performers, people who are extremely successful in different fields, journalism, authors, writers, sportsmen, sportswomen, chefs, and I don't even remember what everyone does, but it's basically people who achieved a great results. I mean, success can be very personal. Here we're talking about people who achieved external success, objective success, and they do have stuff in common. If you look at the stories, they all have something that refers to something very specific. They have some habits, they have some way to recharge themselves. For some of them, it might be going out in the nature. For some of them, would be staying at home. For some others, would be like meeting with friends or going with the dog, going with the children. It's different for each person, but the pattern, and you know, I look at patterns, right? Pattern is the same. They have some habits that give the base and the foundations for them to be solid. And then they have some other things they do, some hobbies or leisures or even other habits that make them performant. They may allow them to have energy when needed, to discharge, to offload the stress when needed, to be focused when needed. And if you look at them, they're actually very similar. If you read the whole book, I haven't read it all yet, but when you read the book, you go forward, I'm more than half now, and you start seeing like, okay, I recognize this. This is very similar to this other person that I interviewed, and they all had failures. That's in common with everyone. One of the questions is, what is one of your failures that you saw it as a failure, that you failed, but that actually set you up for a greater success afterwards? And they all have stories about that. And this is similar in your work, in trying to be more productive, in trying to be more effective, in trying to reach a different and better way of work. But there is another thing that is also quite interesting, and I read is a question that says, what purchase of $100 or less has most positively impacted your life in the last 6 months or recently? And they all have a small thing, a small object or a small something that they bought because it's $100. It's something small, not necessarily in size, but small as not particularly significant, but that made a change. And sort of like it made a click. It made them click on something that increased their well-being or their productivity or that reduced the stress. Sometimes it's a small tool to make self-massage on the neck, you know, that relieves stress. And you know, when I talk about productivity, sometimes people think is a big thing. The way to trigger great productivity and to increase your productivity step by step is like putting a small brick one after the other to build your house. Sometimes it's very important pieces, sometimes it's the small bit that gives you an extra margin, that extra 1%, that extra 5% to what you're already achieving. And that maybe that extra 5%, you say, oh, it's just 5%. But maybe that extra 5% is what brings you to the next level, and you don't know until you're there. You know how it works, right? When you are at the next level, you can realize how much or how little it took, the switch. But until you're there, you don't know. So how can you get some patterns from someone who already achieved great productivity or who's a great performer and learn from them, from him or from her? And what small things in your life can you change in terms of habits, in terms of tools you use that give you that extra margin? Because a 5% here, a 10% there, a 7% on some other thing, that's already quite a lot. So That's one of, well, actually a couple of my tips all condensed together in one video. I hope you liked it and I hope you implement it because it's useful. And waiting for the next tip, stay strong and stay effective.